All right, I'm Pops. I'm going to talk to you about Masters of the Air. If you are a fan of Band of Brothers, The Pacific, this is it. This is the Air Force version of that from World War II, where we're going to have Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks group behind it, an all-star cast. I mean, it's led by just phenomenal performers. Austin Butler, in particular, Barry Keoghan, and Caleb Turner. They play the three main characters. The fourth character is sort of the narrator. He's the guy that wrote the book. His name is Lieutenant Harry Crosby. That's played by Anthony Boyle. He's the actor I probably know sort of like the least about, even though he has been really big on Broadway, part of the Harry Potter Cursed Child thing. That's pretty much the thing I knew him mostly from. Now, with that said, this is exactly what you would expect. It's a lot about real life scenarios and stuff that are poured right out of these incredible memoirs and stories and things like that, integrated in a way that entertains us and gets us engaged in the experience the best we can. So, let me run through these first two episodes. They drop on Fridays, so I don't know how that works for your schedule. I was really pleasantly surprised to have something this entertaining that I can turn to and have a good time with. So, with that, let me just run through. This is the first episode. We get basically the backstory with some girls and how the two main characters' nicknames are Buck and Bucky. And it had to do with, oh, so you look like a guy named Buck and that kind of thing. Again, rooted right out of real life. It's even on like one of the Wikipedia pages, even had a reference to this. So they were trying to at least lift some stuff there, right from the actual stories of these incredible soldiers, Major Gale Cleven and John Egan. And let me say this: um, Austin Butler is a star. Austin Butler has all the things you hear all these cliches about the it factor and this sort of like look. And even though he has sort of like this too good looking look about him, he has such a believable charisma in how he handles everything and bringing this character to life. And it's played opposite so well. Egan, Caleb Turner. Caleb Turner is he's done a lot of roles. I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with a lot of them other than like a Fantastic Beast film. I know I saw that one. There's also some other stuff that I mean I recognize the name like Victor Frankenstein. Obviously, he had a role, but I don't know if those were any major roles. Things like that. With that said, he the other character, let me pull it back up here. He is like the crazy free spirit, right? He wants to sing in front of everybody. He's the drinker. He does there's crazy backstories and things like that. So having them as the two central characters, and then bringing in some of this other stuff around it, it makes for a show that flows very very well. So. A couple of just little high points. Let's just run through a few things. I'd love to hear from you guys what you like and didn't like. There's books that this is based on. There's one actually called Masters of the Air. Obviously, Harry Crosby's book is called A Wing and a Prayer. So those are part of it. And you have a little bit, like I said, love interest stuff. It jumps right into dogfight stuff. So right when we get into this, right before we get to the credits, we go right into dogfight stuff. All sorts of intensity, the music changing, and things like that. What really is great about this sequence when we get past these credits and they actually are there on the ground, we get shots through this episode that really, really give us a look at how hard all of this was and how hard all of this is. The one thing I think my gut was to say the show doesn't feel as gritty as Band of Brothers and Pacific, but I think that's just the nature of the warfare, being an aerial combat. What is interesting is how different the perspective of the planes and the technology is. Like you are really dealing with such primitive technology and how they can keep these things in the air and what they can take when they're shot. You compare that to when we watch a Top Gun movie, it's all about finesse and speed and things like that. So completely different stuff. The one thing too, I want to really touch on briefly, and I don't know where in this episode it is. Again, great performances, great scene changes and things that kind of keep us moving along with the flow of everything. Then you have these moments where they're bonding. You're learning about them with bonding. This level of great storytelling and character development and all of this stuff, you getting attached to so many characters, you can't even keep track of all their names. I don't know about anybody else, but it takes a while sometimes for you to get really attached to some of the, you know, further away characters or characters that may not be around very long. But they did just such a great job. There's a quick line about a dog that likes to fly and things like that, um, and you're just there with the thrill of the mission with them, right? They end up getting lost in the clouds. There's mechanical issues. They end up over France, so now they're in harm's way. There's a landing gear malfunction. All these kinds of things happen. What is really really good is how they will just use pieces of the story. Let me get to pieces of the story about how and why it's all important. So, like when you're in the clouds, it's about the mission is about trying to keep them all together because that's how they would survive. If they get split up, they're just going to get picked off. So, great shots. Look at how beautiful this looks. You get action, but you actually get some context, things like that. This show is just really, really top tier. Um, for me, I just really, really enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing because they dropped 2 episodes at first. Um, so that's the first one. Now, episode 2, it cuts right to the aftermath, right? Going in, you're seeing injured people, you're seeing the casualty. They just do such a great job of talking about um, the side effects of everything and the humanity of it all. This is a kind of a funny little sequence because you end up with like a phase where you can really relate to these characters because they're in sort of a shock. There's sort of a disbelief of what they're going through. And he says, I can't feel anything. I want you to punch me right in the face. And he does. And it's a very interesting, like, that's a really cool take. I thought it was just a really cool take on things. And I didn't fact check all these little scenarios and things like that. I didn't really get into it. So then we end up with like the leadership changes at one point. You have them inspecting some of the damage and what they're going to go up against before you end up with the Brits. So the theme of the second episode is that there is a strategy difference with the bombers. So with the Americans, they're trying to be very precise and target very specific places where the Germans are, whereas the British are like more at night. They've been in war for like 4 years, so they're more like just lay waste to everything. If it's German territory, it needs to just go away. So it turns out that the British American philosophy results into like a little, machismo brawling moment, which is kind of fun. It's fine. It's done in a way that works well. Before we end up back in what our next mission is going to be, and them trying to figure out like who's going to go up and how they're going to format formation and how all this stuff, and then just how things are going to go sideways and what they're going to try to accomplish. Because remember, in the first episode, things don't go as planned, and here it starts to move towards some success, and it starts to change the dynamics. Well, who do you put in charge? Who performed well under pressure? Who did not? They have a plan to get more malfunctions, which I think are great because, again, it's the how do you keep these things in the air? How do you do this? So Barry Keoghan plays one of the other main characters. He's fantastic. His name is Biddick. Fantastic actor. He was nominated for an Oscar, that kind of thing. They have to sit down in Scotland. The only thing I didn't like about that episode was that there's like an actual phone call where they can actually call, and I thought that was ridiculous. You know how much money you would? I don't even know that you would have service from like Scotland to. I think they were in Greenland. Anyway, but just really really good stuff. And then it's just more of like a lot of human dynamics, and then what life would be like in the USO and positioning for power and jockeying, all that kind of stuff. And then there's more shenanigans, which is more like them bonding, and you have an air raid. So what the show is doing is it's giving us so many different dynamics. It's really spelling everything out for what life would be like. And if you are a fan of Band of Brothers, Pacific, those kinds of things, I think this is a show for you. So tell me what you guys think. If you've been able to watch it, I'm having a great time with it. I will see you next week. We get to the next episode. Thank you for watching. I am Pops.
Yeah. Right?